Okay, guys, what is up? Unrested's back again. I almost said Inksmith because I just made a video for my Inksmith channel. Check it out if you want to see a new update on that channel. And today we're going to be talking about the top 10 things affecting Japan right now that are putting it in a bit of a decline. Because right now, let's be honest, Japan not doing so hot. Made a couple mistakes recently, kind of affecting the economy, life itself here, and I guess the quality of life for people in general in Japan. So, starting first with one that kind of surprised me was destructive wildlife. Now, when I first read about this, I thought, well, what do they mean? Like, Japan's actually pretty peaceful as far as, nature is concerned. They're pretty respectful. I mean, it's pretty much part of the Buddhist motto to live and let live. But what I finally figured out was what they're talking about is that there's a lot of farms in Japan that apparently are being destroyed by runaway boar and deer, which this is a problem I had little to no research on or knew anything about. And that's probably because I've lived my whole life in the city side of Japan. Now, I guess let me read a little bit. Deer, wild boar, monkeys, and other creatures who do not know what they do cause an estimated 20 billion yen worth of damage to crops, national parks, and also people in the form of personal injury. Monkeys especially. I really didn't know anything about this, so I mean, this is something I have to look into further. There's not a lot of wild deer, monkeys, or boar running around Osaka right now, so I'm very unfamiliar with this. So apparently, there's a big problem with them ravaging rice paddies, and it's because in a lot of other countries, people eat a lot of the game that would ruin areas of Japan. So that sounds really strange to even put it that way, but like in other countries, people eat deer. They eat boar. And I know probably if you're vegan, you're like hating to hear this right now, but that's not really something that goes down in Japan. They eat a lot of fish, but a lot of wildlife within nature, they kind of stray away from. Like I've explained to Japanese before that we, eat backstrap or veal in America, and they're very surprised by that. But I mean, this is the same country that eats horse meat, so I'm confused why that's such a big surprise to them. Trouble with bicycles. Now, this one can make sense. I totally understand what they're talking about with this. Bicycles, they're great. Just to be clear, like this isn't a list I made. This is like from a white paper research done by the government on social, physical, and climactic issues within Japan. Okay, so I'm not just making this up off the top of my head. I would have never put bicycles or wildlife down on the list if it was my list. But apparently, bicycles. Now you're thinking, like, well, what do you mean bicycles are great for the environment? They don't use gas. Apparently, they cause a lot of injuries within Japan, and I have heard of this before. I've literally heard of people being killed by bicycles, and you're probably wondering, like, why would people be killed by bicycles in Japan? Isn't it a pretty safe country? Yes, but there's a lot of places that don't have bicycle paths, and I mean, they don't have them on the road, and they don't have them on the sidewalk. So most people don't ride their bicycles on the road. They actually ride them on the sidewalk, and some people ride them so fast, and there's so many old people in Japan who can't register a quick movement to dodge out of the way that old people have literally been killed by bicycles, and it's happened more than once. I remember one of the most famous stories that went down here in Osaka only a year ago was a doctor who was racing to get to work, and he hit a single mom, and she died on the spot. And like he could have stopped and probably saved her life because he literally was a doctor. And he left the scene of the crime. I guess you'd call that a hit and run. It is a vehicle hitting someone and going on the run, and she died. It's tragic. I mean, now there's like kids without a mom because this guy's, I guess, was late for work. I don't know how you could justify someone's life over you being a couple minutes late for work, but that's what happened. And I remember being really surprised. And now when I looked into this more, I was like, oh wow, this actually is something that happens quite a bit. It says there's the biggest problems that they're citing, and this is according to the research paper. It says you don't need a license, so there's no license to ride a bike in Japan, which I'm kind of happy about that. I'm glad there's one less thing we need a license for. There's no mandatory instruction on rules of the road. So that is a little bit strange. I know, like in America, even where you don't need a license to ride a bicycle, but we do have actual rules of like what side of the street you ride with traffic. You can't ride your bicycle on a pedestrian sidewalk. At least within Florida, those were the rules. It might change state to state, but we did have set mandatory rules. Um, and few people think of bikes as dangerous, uh, but they don't give any respect that the danger they can cause deserves. Many accidents, Shukan Jose doesn't tell us how many, involve pedestrians and can be very serious. Cyclists draw most of the blame, not altogether fairly. Japan, the magazine points out, is far behind other places, notably Holland and Scandinavia, in creating exclusive bicycle lanes. And that is so true. And okay, look, here's the most annoying thing about riding a bike in Japan. Randomly, they sometimes have bike lanes that show literally like a picture of a bike in them, but people walk through them all the time. And vice versa, people riding bike ride through walking lanes all the time. They're there, but nobody follows them at all. Um, Bicyclists don't follow them, and pedestrians don't follow them. Personally, I do. I actually go out of my way. If there is a bike lane, I will only ride my bike in that lane. I guess mostly just because if I was ever stopped by a cop, they'd have no reason to yell at me. I'm doing exactly what the lane told me to do. But also because I'm just kind of hoping like maybe I'll start a trend. Maybe people start to notice this is actually a bike lane, the one with a person riding a bike in it. It's really strange. I've actually had multiple friends complain to me about this. They're like, "Why does Japan have bike lanes if nobody stays in the bike lane and people walk through the bike lanes?" And I'm like, well, I don't have a good answer for that, and I guess Japan doesn't either. Um, Rise in child abuse. This is the saddest thing to read about, and this is mostly due to the COVID lockdown that happened. People locked at home with their kids 24/7. I get it. It's stressful, but it doesn't give you a right to beat your kids. Let's be honest. If anything, I found I had like more of a stronger connection with my kids during that time. We played like a lot of board games. We built Legos together. We played games together. It was honestly like kind of a lot of fun. It felt like this like super long vacation because since I run a school, my school was closed too. I got money for the government because luckily they were supporting schools, but um, you've got to think about this. The people who weren't running schools were out of a job, not getting paid, on a tighter budget now, with their kids at home, having to make meals 3 times a day. This is. I'm not trying to make an excuse for child abuse. I'm not saying so. Of course, they got angry and beat their kids, um, but some people they're not used to having to deal with that much all the time. Um, especially and I hate to say this, but especially dads within Japan. Dads are not used to being home with their kids all the time. In a lot of Japanese games and TV shows, you notice that the dad's never home, and it's always an interaction between the housewife, mom, and the child. Like take Pokemon for instance. All of the series, your dad is nowhere to be found, and you start the game out with your mom waking you up, and you only talking to her, and she once in a while says, "Oh, your dad wrote a letter from work." That's Japan. The guy is the salaryman. We still kind of live in a 1950s era of housewife and hardworking dad bringing home all the cheese. And when dad can't bring home all the cheese anymore, sometimes that can feel pretty disheartening, I think, for a lot of men in Japan, which, I still think it is noble to this day to work a hard job and bring home the money. One thing I can't agree with is working so long that you never see what that money pays for, as in, you never get to be at the house you're paying for, you never get to see the kids that you're supporting, you never get to hang out with the wife who you're also supporting, I guess, in Japan when she's the housewife, and you never even get to, like, I guess, drive the car that, like, you're paying for. That always seemed kind of ridiculous to me. I can't imagine missing my child's entire life of growing up just because I'm at work 24/7. And these guys do it, man. A lot of men in Japan, man, they work those 18-hour days. They get little to no sleep, and they're right back at it again the next day. Work is like a boys' club for them. They hang out, they joke. Now, the worst part about it, I'd have to say, is because I have worked within a Japanese environment, you would think longer hours produce more, and they don't. Instead, it turns into like this long, laborious day of useless meetings, of doing pretty much anything you want, like bullshitting around work all day, guys taking naps. Late at night, work time, quote unquote, is going out to a bar and drinking with the guys at work. It's mainly actually one of the reasons I don't want to work in a Japanese company, is because I'm just not down with the whole nomi hoda ai thing after work every day. Like, drink all you can drink and party with your boys and never see the family. If I'm going to have a family, I want to see that family. If I'm going to have a house, I want to live in that house. I don't think I'm being irrational in saying these two things. So these men and women who are now at home 24/7 with their kids, and even the housewives, they are stressed out because I guess they're finally seeing what it's like to be locked into a house 24/7 with their kids. As a teacher, this doesn't affect me too much because I'm locked in with kids all day and all night. And, I go home and kids all the time. But for some people, that can be really stressful, especially if you're not like a child person. You don't realize how much your siblings get into a fight every day, or how much your younger and older brothers, your kids who are younger and older brothers, they get in fights with them and scream, or don't want to do homework, or won't get online and do their classes. And, some people have the, I guess, support to deal with this, but some don't, and it ends up with abuse. And apparently that's on the rise. Stress and isolation get much of the blame. Child raising used to be a community responsibility, but communities hardly exist anymore. Or the whole extended family got involved, but extended families too are almost extinct. Moreover, Shukan Josei adds, and this is the report, you keep hearing this Shukan Josei, adds, public children's homes tend to be understaffed and run down, unlike senior citizens' homes, which benefit from much more attention. And this is a problem I've cited over and over and over again. All the money from politicians goes to the elderly because they're the only ones who have money and the only ones who vote, and they deny children and young families any sort of support whatsoever. And then they tell them, why is our population getting lower and lower? It's incredibly idiotic. I just don't know any other way to say it. Let's see. Female poverty. Oh man, this is a sad one too. So being a single mother in Japan, not easy. Not easy. Okay, my heart really truly goes out to single mothers in Japan. Number one, women are not given respect within Japan the same as men. They are not given the same pay, the same jobs. There is an actual wage cost, a wage gap, I should say. There is an actual lesser opportunity of jobs, of higher up positions, especially within science and the technical world. Women are not respected as much. People always ask me if I'm a feminist, and I always tell them I'm not a feminist in the Western sense. I'm a feminist in the Eastern sense, where I feel like women are horribly mistreated in the East. And it's so true. Anything you would research that you'd be like, well, I'm not for feminazis, but they get the same rights. It's not true here in Japan. Women do not get the same rights as men. They are not listened to the same as men. They are not taken as serious as men, and it's sad. And so, of course, when you're a single mom and you're trying to make enough money to cover the cost of a kid, which on average is 22 million yen, so you're talking about almost $220,000 from baby to leave your house at 20 years old, because 20 years old is a full-grown adult here in Japan. That is a lot of money. Okay, that is a ton of money. And unless you're working at least upper middle class jobs your whole life, and usually with the support of two parents, it's possible. But when you're a single mom trying to do that and take care of all these I'm going to be honest with you, some of these really silly ass things that they make them take kids to. For example, sports day is kind of ridiculous. Hapyokai is kind of ridiculous. Sometimes they force moms to join PTA, and it's not like in America where you volunteer for PTA. Like, you literally are sometimes given these roles. Like, my wife has already been forced into being PTA for our school and part of our apartment building too. And like, it wasn't something she was like, oh, I can't wait to do that. She's just literally on the roster, and they call her up and say, hey, you're going to be the treasurer of the parent teacher advisory. And she's just like, oh, okay, thanks. And they're like, well, what? You're not a housewife? Oh, no, surprise. She's, a modern career woman. I know, crazy, right? And they almost, the craziest thing is they almost would not let her leave the group. The next group of volunteers refused to show up because they were hardworking women too. And they were like, look, I just don't have time to do this. One was a single mom. One was a married woman, but she was dealing with cancer and she couldn't join. So like, we're not going to blame them for not joining something they didn't volunteer for and are forced into. So my wife had to do it for an extra 2 years. Now, my kids are almost finished with elementary school, and it's reaching an absurd point where my wife is still part of the PTA up until last year, when she finally took everything connected to her being in the PTA and like had to drop it off at their office and then block them on SMS so they wouldn't message her to do anything anymore. It was insane. And like, these are kind of the antiquated, stupid systems that Japan runs on women, and then still expects them to take perfect care of their kids. And also, just another thing I really hate about Japan as far as what they blame women for is, if the kid does anything wrong, crazy, absurd, criminal, the mom gets blamed all the time. And I'm not talking about like some trash mom who gave her kid a gun and, raised him in some dirty ass trailer park and was a hoarder and kept all kinds of garbage and stuff in the house. I'm talking like normal, everyday, great mothers who did everything to raise their kid great, did their homework with them, studied with them all the time. The kid grows up to be some sort of psycho, whether it be from some sort of brain damage or whatever. The mom gets blamed. Oh, you didn't raise your kid right. You'll see this all the time. Check anytime a male actor who's young and his mother is also an actor gets into any kind of trouble, the mother has to come forward, their career is ruined, and they have to apologize for their child. It's insanity. It's absolute insanity. After a kid is an adult, after they have that adult brain, I do not see why the mom still needs to be blamed for their idiotic decisions. This makes no sense to me. Okay, let's move on. What are we on? Number 3? Was that number 3? I don't even remember anymore. I'm just going to keep reading the rest here, okay? The sinking economy. Okay. The sinking economy, if you don't know, right now Japan's economy is doing horrible. The yen is something like 80 to the dollar. That's crap. It used to be like 120 to 150. America right now is in an upswing of plus 1.5% as far as their economy is concerned, as far as their money is worth worldwide. And Japan is down by minus 10%. So it's doing awful. And there's a lot of reasons behind this. Number one, we got the Olympics. Complete and utter failure. I do not know why Japan did what it did with the Olympics. They made the dumbest decisions they could have ever made. I don't know why they let themselves be bullied by the Olympic community, like the board of Olympic heads. I don't know what you'd call them. They were completely bullied by them into having the Olympics with no people coming to it. They should have just called off the Olympics. It was, I think, a $100,000 fee if they didn't have the Olympics. That seems like pennies compared to how much money they lost. They lost millions and millions and millions and millions. I probably going almost into the billions, I'm sure, as far as how much they lost by getting the crew together to film everything, put it on all these channels with empty seats. Nobody watched it. Japan itself was not supportive of the Olympics because they thought it was idiotic to have it here while COVID was going on. And I gotta agree, I think we should have just called the Olympics off for this year. I don't know why the Olympic board made them have it. It seems absolutely ridiculous. I just feel like pride got into the way of everything on that situation. And now we're suffering for it. Like, apartment prices are way out of the reach of most of the youth. There's loads of jobs that have been shut down that no one can get anymore. Just yesterday, I went to drop my kid off at the airport. We tried to take the bus home, and they told us the bus is not running for the next 2 years because of COVID. Now, mind you, we are out of wearing masks everywhere outside. We don't need to wear masks all the time anymore. There hasn't been a massive COVID outbreak in ages now. Travel is open, but the airport was completely empty. It was an international airport, KIX, huge airport, just absolutely like lights turned off everywhere, completely empty. The buses are shut down for the next 2 years. Their reason, because of COVID. What? What? So like on the way there, I rode the train to get to the airport, and we're sitting like face to face almost on the train. We're standing face to face. I mean, I'm wearing a mask on the train still because you're just too close to people there. But what? On the bus, I mean, at least people can't stand up. At least in Japan, you're not standing up on the bus. You're sitting down. What? You're going to shut it down for the next 2 years? So for the next 2 years, anybody driving a bus within that area, which is Tonoji, huge area, huge amount of jobs, huge amount of buses, and people selling tickets, the security, the luggage load, all those jobs are gone. And that's just one small facet affected by COVID. Imagine how many more are. Radiation. Radiation is still a problem because of TEPCO. Lovely, lovely TEPCO. That's Japan's electricity company. I don't know, like the official electricity company. These jerks who run this company, I mean, they have little to no care for any human life, it seems like to me. This year, they told us, don't turn on your air conditions, try to turn off all your lights in your house. We've still had some problems. We haven't put up a new tower of power on, what do you call it? A new generator. That's I guess you can call it generator, since that one broke down all the way back in 2011. So we're 11 years past the time when the earthquake happened in Fukushima, and they have yet to do anything. They haven't started work on a new generator, the one that went down. They haven't cleared out a lot of the water that has radiation in it. They haven't made any new houses for the people who lost their houses due to the radiated water that like covered their area and they can't move back to it. Those people are still living in like makeshift and tent houses 11 years later. This company, TEPCO, if you read anything about them, just know they are evil incarnate. I swear to God, these people have little to no care for human life, and it's unbelievable. We have old people dying in their sleep because they listen to this company. They're old school. They're, okay, Japan told us to do it. We better not turn on our air conditions. Then they die in their sleep from dehydration and heat stroke. What? And then they're wondering why their population is dipping more and more. What? I don't, Sinking birth rate. No one wants to have a baby. I think we've already talked about this. There's no support for it. There's no support to have a baby, to start a family. We're one of the lucky couples that work middle class jobs that allow us to afford the benefits of, having a family and sending them to Juku and having them in a good school. We live in a good area that has good education. Lucky for us, but not everyone is so lucky. And I think I read recently that most men of 30 years of age or older, younger, have never ever had a date in Japan. So most of your 30-year-olds in Japan are not only never had a date or even dated a girl, they're just not even interested because there's no great future for them. There's no chance to start, I guess, what we would have called the American dream, maybe the Japanese dream. There's no chance for them to get a job that pays well enough, for them to be able to see a family that they would start if they even got one of these jobs, or to even be at the house that they would pay for if they got one of these jobs that take up their whole life. They watch their dads work jobs 20 to 18 hours a day and never be home, and they're like, why would I want that? Why would I want that life? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. Let's see, what else we got here? Sinking birth rate. Powerless government. Oh God, how true is that? Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on with the government in Japan. I mean, they can't even protect the ex-prime minister. How the heck can they run the country, my honest opinion of politicians everywhere in the entire world is garbage. They're all garbage. I think most of you would probably agree with me at this point that almost every politician out there. I don't care if you're left leaning or right leaning, if you're in the middle, if you're temperate. I don't care what that hell your leaning is. You're useless. All politicians are useless. They're liars, they're thieves, they care about themselves first, their family next, their people that lobby for them after that, big corpo, and probably in Japan, maybe after all that is cut off, probably a little bit for the elderly here or there, and then screw everyone else. Everyone else can go die in a ditch. They don't really care. I don't have any faith in any politicians anywhere in the world, including my own. I'm not a fan of. I wasn't a fan of Trump when he was president either. I'm not a fan of Biden. Okay, so please don't think I'm out here to push any kind of agenda for anything as far as politics are concerned. It's all garbage. It's all useless. Politicians in politics exist for the politicians in the politics. They do nothing to help the people anymore. Okay, let's see. What is next? I think this is one of the last ones here. Gosh, you know what? I've kind of lost count. They don't have them numbered here on their own report. It just says these are the 10, and they're kind of like scattered all over in this weird writing style. So maybe I'm hitting 10 here. I don't even know. Let's see. Unpopular and seeming powerless government. Existential threat. Less fateful but closer to home is a tangle of small worries and anxieties. Social worries and anxieties. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a good one to end on. Social worries and anxieties. Yeah, there's a lot of that in today's world. I'd say all over. They say, more and more people live their life online. Uber Eats, I blame you. No, I'm just joking. I don't think Uber Eats is the problem. And actually, if you work that job, my hat's off to you. That looks like a hard job, especially in Japan where those guys are riding around with those giant backpacks in the summer heat. My God. Whew. Let it be you guys. I don't think I could handle that. No one goes out anymore and meets anybody. People are becoming more and more introverted. And I don't think there's a huge problem with being introverted. I'm an introvert. As much as you see me talk on this channel or my other channels, I, for the most part, like to keep to myself. I'm not a real outgoing, like, let's head off to the bar and party with the boys kind of guy. I'm more of a, like, let's sit at home and play a game. But I think in general, there's not a lot of motivation to go out in Japan for multiple reasons. The price of gas has skyrocketed to an insane point, just like it has in America. The price of just going out to eat, you're not going to get even a somewhat decent meal for under 30 to 40 bucks. Jobs are pretty much doing some really scammy stuff with new workers coming in. The new thing that jobs are doing here in Japan is squeezing their employees for everything they can by working them as many hours as they can without giving them proper national health insurance. If you work a certain number of hours, depending on how many hours you work, your job has to pay a certain percentage of your national health care. And what they're doing is they're giving them these weird random hours so that they fall underneath that. So if it's like 40 hours a week means you get 70% of your national health insurance paid. They'll work them, 39.9 hours, and they'll make sure they write that down on the sheet. Like just really scammy stuff like that. Corporations in general, they're just as bad as the politicians. Corporations don't care about you. I get it. Money, right? Money is the root of all evil. Money is the thing that motivates all these corporations to try and save every buck they can and, burn through the employees like, they mean nothing. I get it. But at some point, there is going to be a breaking point. And, I think we're starting to see that somewhat within Japan. We're starting to see people have protests. We're starting to see people fight back. We're starting to see the next generation just refuse to go work, and companies not even be able to find the staff they want to work these crap jobs that pay crap money and don't even cover health insurance. A lot of these, like I say, a lot of people don't go out and get jobs, and that more jobs are falling apart. The really good jobs are the ones that are being scraped off the list and being taken away from people, and the only ones left are these like really crap service jobs. And I'm not saying people who work service jobs are crap. In fact, I've worked quite a few service jobs in my past. That's how I made it through college and post-college. But those jobs in Japan treat people like crap, and people are refusing to be treated that way anymore, and good for them. But at the same time, what that says to me is that those service jobs need better benefits. They need to treat the people better so that they can get the people they need. All right? You can't staff a corporation if you don't treat the staff like staff, as in human staff. Okay? You want to replace everything with AI and automated services and stuff like that? That's great, but don't expect any sort of empathy from the customer. And don't expect any sort of sympathy from the people you would hire, right? I don't know, guys. Sorry for such a negative take on the video, but I guess recently in Japan, I've kind of been really disheartened seeing the way things are going. This has actually been the first time since living in Japan that I've really thought about, do I need to move my family back to America? Just with how sedentary and unmoving and static the policies seem here. I try to always stay resolute in the fact that the Japanese are hardworking. The Japanese are polite, they're courteous, they're intelligent, wonderful people. But the government that is controlling this country, the prime minister who's in charge right now, they're apathetic. They're apathetic and they're greedy. The corporations out here are apathetic and greedy. We're finding more and more what they call baraka corporation or baraka company, which means like a company that really mistreats its employees. We're seeing this more and more and more. And I'm seeing this in the States too. I'm not saying this is a problem that's solely a Japan thing. I think we see this in the States all the time. But I feel like in the States, there's such a massive choice of what you can do and such a freedom of what you can do that there is ways out of that. People start a commune. People quit their job and work from home. In Japan, that's not really an option. There's not a great support system to be able to do that. That's something I'd have to go into greater detail in another video to explain, but just know that that's not as easy to do. And that's what's kind of disheartening about Japan, is I'm seeing these wonderful people, these wonderful Japanese people be used and abused by the country. And I don't know if that's a life I want to put my kids in. I don't know when they grow up if things are still going this bad, where the youth are treated like trash just to pay all the bills of the elderly, where politicians scrape everything out of the employees and civilians' pockets to pay for their greedy schemes, where corporations are apathetic to anything that people do or buy or say or communicate to them. Then I really don't know if this is the future I want my kids to have. They have both passports now, they have both languages, and I don't know, I gotta really focus on where the opportunity is for them. Pretty much these days, I run my company here, and my wife works her job here, and we can continue to do that, but what's more important to me is the future of my children. And if Japan can't foster any sort of hopeful future for them, then I don't see any reason to continue to keep my family here when I could give them a better life in America. And look, America's got a ton of problems. I don't think running to America is going to solve all my problems. In fact, I think Japan is far more peaceful and there's far less infighting within Japan as far as like whether people join the left or the right side of politics. There's none of that bullshit here, which I love. But I feel like there is still more opportunity in America for my kids. So we'll see. I don't know. No plans as of yet. Like, I'm not on my way to moving there just yet. There is a possibility I will be moving my son over there and getting a secondary house in America soon, just to have a place to travel between for my son, who's looking into a future boarding school, junior high school, whatever he decides on. It's up to him. I'm not going to force my kid into anything, but I am going to let him choose. And if he chooses America, I am going to help him set up a life there. And that's just one of my sons. My other son is still pretty content within Japan, and doesn't have any plans for America. But, I'm going to let them go where they want to go, where their interests, their life, their opportunities, and their pursuit of their own happiness and success leads them. And if they decide that that's America, that's what I'm going to do. Um, I hope you can understand my point here. Again, I'm not trying to dog on Japan. The people here are still lovely. They're intelligent, bright, hopeful, polite, and almost too hardworking for their own good to the point that they get abused by it. But my love for the people of Japan does not continue over to my love for the government and the way Japan is run. And that's a big problem right now. And I don't know where that lies for the future. Until next time, though, it's been a great time talking to you again on the channel. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. I've been Unrested, and I'll talk to you again real soon.